Good morning, good morning, good morning. Well, hello friends. It is 10:30. Getting started today a little later than my more common 10 o'clock. And by the way, it looks like my webcam is a little, well, darn it. What are you going to do? That's about the best we can do, I think. Isn't that annoying? Anyway, we'll see if that's a slight improvement. Anyway, okay, so here's the agenda today. I'm going to dive in and get to work. Step one is working on tightening up the theme of the show. Somebody asked the other day, I think it might have been Max, which is short for a longer YouTube handle, but I think it was Max. I can't remember who it was, but somebody asked about whether I'll be live streaming working on the score. And the answer was kind of dicey, like maybe, we'll see. Creating music is a pretty, it's a pretty emotional, hey Dominic, good morning. Emotional, it's a sensitive process, right? That where there's a lot of sitting there and thinking about what you're doing, and where it really can become pretty boring, I think, probably for you guys. But at the same time, I'm sure it is probably an interesting process. It certainly would be for me to watch someone actually scoring to a, to video. So step one today was I kind of did offline, actually, which was to tighten up the theme. So in my case, this means going into Reaper, and we had this project here in Reaper where I had been fiddling around with various just musical ideas. So I'm basically just sketching ideas. Little clarinet thing. No idea what I was thinking at the time. This was a few months ago when I created that. So yeah, this initial piece was related to probably when Mel is fishing, something like that. Just something light and kind of airy. So, and by the way, Dominic, if you're here to for stuff related to animation, hang in there. I'll be getting to that in just a few minutes. Okay, so anyway, what happens is I had this like a cello or a contrabass thing. Ominous music kind of deal. So again, these are just ideas that I didn't know where I would wind up using them. And then that dovetails into the actual theme. So the theme started like this.
My name is Asher.
Okay, so I'm going to mute the recording I did
holy man
of myself doing the voice of Asher. So basically the problem I had this morning is that it's a little bit of a bugginess with Reaper, but the bottom line is that where it transitions and changes tempo, it was really clunky to get this transitional point where some of the music overlaps the tempo change. By removing all this sort of garbage that I really didn't want to keep in the project, it made getting all the tempos to line up a little clunky. And again, that's a great example of something that you probably don't want to sit and watch, really. Right? So I had to go into the theme and just get things lined up and cleaned up, and it took about a half hour of dinking around with it so that I wound up.
His name was Melchizedek.
And so now this version is actually a little bit cleaner. There are a few spots I'm hearing where I still need to go in and manually just tighten up some of the timing and whatnot. So I kind of stole that ending from JW, also known as John Williams, where you're just, I don't know, you kind of hear it in probably stuff like the Superman theme or something, where he's really just kind of really stretching out that percussive peak, you know, at the end of the piece. Right? Like how far, you know, if you took it to extremes, it'd be like bum 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 bum. You know, you could just keep it going forever if you really wanted to. But anyway, so once I got the theme pretty much tightened up, then what I did was I just created a template from it. And it's one of the nice things you can do with Reaper is I can insert the tracks from a template, which I named the Salt and Light Theme Orchestra. And so this gives you kind of a sense. I've got my little MIDI controller here. Gives you a little bit of a sense of what the, at least probably for some of the show, you know, what's kind of the limitations that we're going to work with in terms of what just happened right there was not supposed to happen, and I know why it happened. Again, that's a little bit of a buggy thing. It won't happen again. Sorry about that. Okay, so basically you got flute, and the whole thing is in C sharp minor, at least the theme is, which means that if you're into music, you probably know that that means that effectively it's also in E major. So when you go to you know, maybe a less ominous or tenuous or, you know, feeling part of the show, when you want things to be up a little more happy or whatever, if you're not necessarily wanting to change key, then probably you're going to be in E major. So you got your oboe, you got your clarinet, which I think will be quite useful on this show. All right, bassoon is really good for, like, actually, let me go down an octave. Things like that, you know, and that's one thing I do want to do more of in the show is extremely minimalistic scoring. I don't want really big, I don't want it to be too thick, frankly, most of the time. Now, especially because a lot of these instruments, you know, really on their own, they really have a nice feeling to them, you know. Very clean. Things like that are just really simple. And trumpets, obviously, probably won't be that useful for underscore, although trombones might be. What else do we have here? This was kind of an interesting one that'll probably get deleted. It's actually got the, it's a French horn swell that's got the, it's got that thing actually baked into the sample, which is really cool, but, you know, most of the time not going to be all that useful. And then you got your string sections. So that's the gist of it. Down here, hopefully this won't cause another one of those explosions. I don't know what that is, like a shamisen or something. But, so some ethnic. But anyway, the point is that, so now what I've tightened up the theme, and at the same time created a template that we can use later on for scoring and whatnot. So thanks, Max. Was it you who asked about music stuff the other day? I think it was. And so again, the matter of sitting here and watching, you know, if you're going to do it live and you say, okay, let's just play this, you know, what do you do with that, right? This is basically a dialogue type situation. So you know, for me, I'm probably going to be looking at maybe, let me see here. If, I need to stop this. Go back here, and let's just go to the clarinet, just because my tendency is always going to be to, hey, Tiny Sally, my tendency is always going to be to overdo it, like every time. I mean, I'm going to really fight the temptation to do too much. You know what I mean? So you just kind of put these ideas down there and you start, you find it. You don't really just like decide what you're going to do. At least I don't. You know, you sort of search and find it within the limitations of the sonic palette that you've chosen. And then, of course, you can always modify it. But so I didn't want to belabor that. But that was the first thing on the task list today. So, yeah, Fruity Loops. I played around quite a bit with Fruity Loops probably 10 years ago or something, and this is Reaper, R-E-A-P-E-R. I've been using Reaper for about 10 years. Before that, I was using what's Julian Storer's program? Traction. I used Traction for one film, and you know, this was again about 10 years ago, and I was kind of going through a transitional period where I was trying to figure out what my software was going to be. When I finally got on board with Reaper, you know, I've been using Reaper now for many, many years, and I'm still using the version that's at least 8 years old, which is the same with Vegas. You know, the version of Vegas I use is pretty old. Yeah, Dominic, exactly, Reaper. Really, really, really powerful, really, really capable program. So, anyway, you know, at some point there's going to be a bit of, you know, just kind of sitting through the visuals and trying to figure out how to support them as best I can with the music. So that's that. Anyway, back to animation work. So tighten up the theme. So the next thing on my agenda is the next Tia shot, or the next TNR shot. So if we go back over here, yesterday what I did was this shot. And you can see, this is, you know, it's a little embarrassing, frankly, but that's part of the reason why I want to do it here, is I'm trying to be as transparent as I can about the challenges of trying to take something and make it good. I talked a couple months ago about the dark night of the soul that you go through as a creator, and it's happened every time I've done a movie, where about halfway into the process you start going, oh my god, this is like so bad, this is gonna sit. Does it have instruments in vanilla? Not sure what you mean by that. I will tell you this, Max. It's really one of the kind of best kept secrets, you might say, of you can spend a lot of money on orchestra samples, right? Admittedly, some of them are amazing. So you can get into East-West, you can get into I don't even know what the flavor of the week is as far as orchestral sample libraries, but sample libraries are very much like the conversation we had a couple days ago here on the live stream about cameras. The industry is highly incentivized to convince you as a creator that it's really important that you have the latest, greatest thing, because if you don't have the latest, greatest thing, you're never going to find work, you know, in Hollywood, like those guys like Danny Elfman, you know, and Hans Zimmer and all those guys. Well, first of all, when we had the conversation about cameras, the point that I made was that it's not about the camera. It's mostly about the lights. And then, of course, how you frame up your shots and things like that. I mean, you don't want to be stupid about it, but basically, going from so-so video to really good video pretty much is all about the lights. And lights are cheap. But if you understand that, hey, good morning, Tom Doing Art. Good morning, Calvin Pruitt. If you understand that, then you're not going to spend money on the next baddest camera that's out there from Blackmagic, or, you know, God forbid you feel like you've absolutely got to shoot it with a red, you know, or whatever. Well, I think sample libraries are the same way. So the best kept secret that I'm getting around to, Max, to sort of answer your question is this, I'm going to write it down here, and I'm going to tell you that you're going to want to go find this. You've got to find it online, but basically here's the deal. Many, many years ago, Roland, the keyboard company Roland, had a subsidiary called Adderall. Okay, Adderall, long story short for the purposes of this discussion, is that their VST, or virtual instruments, were under the Adderall banner. Okay, so there was a VST and DXI plugin called Adderall Orchestral. Okay? Now this is quite amazing because the Adderall Orchestral VST, it was never the, as I say, flavor of the week. It would, most people would be, yeah, and Dominic, by the way, I have 3 Canon T2Is. So this is a really old camera, right? And the very last movie I shot, Healed by Grace 2, I shot most of it with the Sony, oh geez, I forget the name, but it's something 900. The thing about it is, you may know it, but the selling point of that camera was its incredible dynamic range. Like you could be shooting in the dark, like in the middle of the night, and you could crank the ISO to like 120,000 or something, and you could actually get a good exposure in absurdly low light. And so I did shoot about 4/5 of that movie with that Sony camera, which I then sold off on eBay. Basically, the T2Is, you can get them on eBay for probably $100 now, 100 maybe 2. But the Canon T2I has been the mainstay. And by the way, the movie that is on here on my YouTube channel, Clerical Errors, which was from basically, well, I would say we shot it about 6 years ago or something. That thing, everything in that movie was shot with Canon T2Is, which even then you could get for a couple $100, maybe 3. So very cheap cameras. Anyway, my point is this. The Adderall Orchestral VSTI plugin, basically it became what I think we would call abandonware. Okay? In other words, they basically just quit supporting it and it kind of disappeared. Well, right now, it is widely regarded on the internet, and Roland doesn't seem to be doing anything to contradict this view, but the basic view is that this plugin is abandonware, and it's essentially freeware at this point. For all practical purposes, it's being treated as freeware. So if you go, you're going to have to go look for it, but it's not like you have to crack it. Well, there may be a crack required. I don't know about that. But all I'm saying is, for all practical terms, this orchestral plugin I've been using for 10 years, and it really holds up well even today. And so I haven't messed around with all the latest, greatest, orchestras that are out there that obviously, again, they're super incentivized to convince you just got to have, or else you'll never find work. It's all just stupid. It's not about the plugin. It's really about the music and the articulation. So everything in the theme for this show was done with Adderall Orchestral, plus the shamisen, or whatever the ethnic instruments are. Hey Zuko, I hear Zuko over there chirping. Zuko, I'm live streaming right now, so you need to shh. Okay, we'll see if he listens. That's Zuko, the African gray parrot. Usually he's pretty quiet when I'm live streaming. Anyway, yeah, the latest version of the Canon T line probably is T12 or something. I mean, I don't know what the latest is, but so yeah, you cannot. I certainly, if there's one thing that I'm living proof of, is that you don't have to spend tons of money to get a good result. But it takes a lot of work, Anyway, my point for Max is go find this, Adderall Orchestral. You'll be able to find it if you look for it. And it's really and it's not big either. It's not like tons of gigabytes of samples. They just really hit the sweet spot and did a really good job of creating the articulations and all the rest. No, for drums and bass, my personal, if you look here on YouTube at my most successful film, which was called Healed by Grace. Okay, so it's a chick flick horse movie. That movie all of that has a lot of original songs in it. We were kind of channeling Taylor Swift at the time, you might say. We were kind of channeling her sound. But I can tell you that almost all of the instrumentation, other than the stuff I played live, like guitar and keyboards, most of the instrumentation was free SFZ files, sound fonts, basically, sound fonts. So what I was going to say is the other aspect of the soundtrack for this this show would be the Proteus, which is back in the day you had Emu, right? The Emu emulator. Well, they had a more affordable consumer product called the Proteus, which was a hardware standalone rack mount sound module, right? Well, they released all the sounds from the Proteus series as sound fonts at least 10 years ago. And you can get them for either free or, $20 or something. I mean, really, really cheap. But actually, if you go through and start fiddling with the Proteus, you discover there's some really, really good samples in there. And so the Proteus is, again, for 20 years, has proven to be a useful sound library. And there's nothing that's come out in the last 10 years that I've found so compelling that it's worth, spending a bunch of time trying to get that perfect sound. So the truth of the matter is, when it comes to drums and bass, I have probably about 20 sound fonts that pretty much cover the gamut of drum kits. And, most of the time I probably use 2 of them. There's like 2 drum kits that are really, really good that I use a lot. And so I'll check really quick just for the purpose of let's pop this up and see what happens. Okay, is this loading? No, that's not. This is unfortunately some like legacy garbage. I'm looking for something that's kind of a pop tune kind of thing. And so there may be some problems with the paths, because like the legacy content may be on a different hard drive now than when I produced it, years ago. And so in some cases it may be hard to find. So I'm going to, if I can find something really, really quick, maybe the best thing to do would be just do this. If I insert a track template here, so let's go to individual instruments and we'll choose the, let's go with the Proteus 2. Okay, so the Proteus 2 sound font. Oh, I see the problem. I got to pop up on the other screen, so, but that's okay. So, yep. Sorry about that, guys. Thank you for the warning. Sorry, Dominic. I apologize. Okay, so basically, the Proteus is. I'm waiting for. I made a really stupid mistake here. It would probably be best to just kill Reaper. I'm going to actually kill Reaper and start over, because what happened was I was trying to load the project and I thought there was a problem, and what was happening was I was getting a warning on the other screen that I didn't realize was up there. So forgive me, my friends. Let's try one more thing here. Let's go back to, and guys, hopefully you guys are okay with this quick diversion away from animation. So okay, yeah, and by coincidence, the one thing that it can't find is the one thing we wanted, which is the pop set sample. So I'm going to ignore all missing files and let this load. So again, I seriously apologize, guys, because I didn't really think I was going to go down this road, but this is what really often happens when you're when you start diving into legacy projects, So the one thing missing here is the drums, believe it or not. That's hilarious. So anyway, let's do this. We'll create a new project and we'll just insert a template, which is going to be an individual instrument, which is going to be the Proteus. And then what I'll do here is, so there's that. And then what I'm going to do is go in the file browser, and what we'll see here is under Reaper plugins, I'm sorry, not plugins, patches, we've got sound fonts and then drum kits. And I mean, I've got, so how many is that? There's probably 40 of them. So Angular Pop, let's get down to too much reverb obviously on that, but let's look at the we'll take that reverb off. But so yeah, I mean, oodles of, I'm trying to look at, okay, there's a kick drum. I don't particularly like that kit for sure. Let's look at this Tama Rockstar. That's not bad. That's actually a good vanilla garden variety drum kit for pop type music. And frankly, like I said, all of these sound fonts are freely available online. If you go and search for free sound fonts, you'll find them. And so anyway, that's, I'm going to kind of pause on that and get back to the, yeah, of course it's missing, right. So anyway, what we're going to do here, and I will transition back to this screen. So we did this shot yesterday, and now what we're going to do is okay, so actually I'm going to go back to the big screen. What I wanted to say, let's get back to animation here. I was making the point that, you know, here we have a shot that I fixed up yesterday that I'm pretty happy with, okay? The only thing I did after I live streamed yesterday was I added the body highlight effect so we get this rim light. Well, now let's look at this and this, okay? So now you can see this doesn't even look like the same person, okay? This was done a long time ago. She's clearly off character. And I think it's kind of interesting that the rendering of it is pretty crisp, you know, and we see it even more down here, like on this shot. Like this is really crisp, but the background is a little too cartoony, and I'm going to have to debate with myself whether she's really sufficiently on character here. My sense at this point is that she is, that this shot is probably okay, although I want to blur the background. By contrast, this one back here is horrible, okay? So we need to go into this shot, and we need to add a couple expressions to get her back on character, okay? So again, kind of an embarrassing problem to have, and you know, it kind of goes back to what people keep asking about, you know, well, I should say, yesterday someone asked about how you know, do character design and that type of thing. So I suppose if there's a point to all this, it's that I'm just a guy and I make mistakes and I'm learning as I go. And so now what we have to do is, I'm not going to be satisfied if I don't go in and make the show as good as it can be. So what do? Well, in this shot, we basically got these three expressions. So let's look at the shot that's problematic, which is this, and see if what we have in here kind of gets us there. I think it does, actually. I think maybe we just need to add some lip sync. So if that's the case, we don't need this animation. So what I'm going to do is actually hit Alt up arrow, and I'm just going to scale this back to, let's move this. I'm going to give her an eye blink down here so that we can move this up. So we're just going to start right out on this shot, okay? So this can be a fairly simple shot to do because I don't really think she needs to be moving around a lot. We just need to get the lip sync in there. When she says her line is, let me think. She says, I need to look at the script. She says he has nothing. But he has nothing. Okay, and a little bit of a, let me check one thing here, pop back here, let's look at edit. Okay, yeah, so that's fine. Looking at the script, he has nothing. She says, TNR, we do not speak to such people. Oh, yeah, okay. So what she says, she basically gets interrupted, but she says, surely it can't hurt to. Surely it can't hurt to. And then her mother passes in front of her. Okay? That's the shot we're dealing with. Okay, so great. Now I know what I'm doing. Kind of went through the same process yesterday where I'm sort of figuring it out. Okay, so we're going to have to put in Carliana passing in front of her. Okay, so in order to make this work, what we need to do, and we're switching screens again, what we need to do is go to this shot and look at where it is. And I'm on the other screen, I'm just checking. This is shot number 116. Okay? So, file, scene, save as, and this is going to be 116. Okay? So, we should be getting everything saved. By the way, yesterday I was talking about the scene cast window and how that helps keep the XML in your file clean. Darren T posted a comment clarifying that that really isn't what the scene cast window is actually doing under the hood. So if you are wondering about that, you could look at the comments from yesterday's video. So Max, yeah, what I did right here was I just wanted to preserve the eye blink when I'm deleting the frames and sort of ripple editing the whole thing. I didn't want to delete the eye blink. If this one cell had gotten deleted, then the entire column would have disappeared because there's nothing else in it. So anyway, but yeah, I'll judiciously use the eye blink wherever it sort of feels right. Okay, so she says, okay, well, actually, she starts her line with but again. So she says, but surely it can't hurt to. So my thinking is probably we could actually just go like this, and let's see if the basic dialogue situation works. But surely it can't hurt to. Well, okay, it pretty much works. I'm going to leave it at that for the moment, and then we need to change our render settings. So we're actually outputting to the right place. All right, so now there's a little bit of housekeeping involved because we're dealing with legacy shots, okay? So I suspect this shot was probably a ping sequence, not a JPEG sequence. And indeed, that is the case, all right? So there's also another hiccup with it. It looks like it was probably rendered from Blender because what we see here is not a dot, but an underscore. So what that means is we're going to have to reinsert it into the timeline anyway. So we might as well just do our normal procedure of rendering out a JPEG sequence. Okay, so if you guys are having a hard time following that, I do apologize. If something doesn't make sense and you want to ask, feel free. Okay, so we're going to put that in the render folder, and we're going to go ahead and make it JPEGs because, as I said, it's all going to have to be re-rendered anyway. Because there's once an image sequence is in Vegas, there's not really a way to change the individual images that it is pointing to. Okay, so that means we're going to have to cut the old image sequence out and put the new one in. Okay, Max, I got your point, and not a bad idea. Okay, so we'll be coming back to that. Okay, so we've got our output settings correct. And I think I want to play a bit with her characterization here. So, but surely, okay, on the word surely, I'm going to make a duplicate. Okay, and my point with the duplicate is going to be, and this is going to actually run down to the bottom here. I want to put a little bit of a kind of that eye squint when you're a little bit frustrated or confused kind of thing. So because of the plastic tool, I need to go in and do it individually into the image itself. This should be pretty simple. All we really need to do is take the V key and put this on lines and areas. And then we're going to put that across like that. That little hint probably could stay in there. So the nice thing about being in lines and areas mode is it lets you can just go in and paint over stuff and fix it pretty readily. By the way, I really should have had the specular in there. Doggone it. I think we'll let that go this time. I'm talking about the specular in her eyes. Actually, let's do it. Let's go like this. Let's just get it in there. And then what I'll do is, remind me, folks, I'm going to need to re-render the last shot we did. Because when I do save all right now, this TLV file, excuse me, apologize, a little bit of a sneeze there. Okay, so when I do save all, which I'm going to do right now, this image sequence gets saved. So it's going to take a half a second to do that. And then when I reload the last shot we did, all of these images will update with the specular in her eyes, and all I have to do is a quick re-render. Okay, so that's what we'll do. All right, so this should be done saving, and now what I'm going to do is immediately just go back and do my due diligence here. So 99K, and I'm just going. You can see right now. See that her eyes are. You got your specular in there, and all I have to do is hit Control-Shift-R. This will re-render, and it's going to update in the timeline on the show, and now I can just go back to the shot I was just working on and get back to work. Okay, so there we go. Back to 116. All right, and so she says, but surely it can't hurt to. Okay, now, because of that little push, let me see here, but. Okay, so where she says but is really where we want to put the eye blink. But surely it can't hurt to. Okay, and then what we want to do is hit the old X key. And do we have global key turned on? Okay, since global key is turned on, anything I do here is going to set keyframes for all of the bones, which is what I want. Okay, I won't get into why right now, but so what I want to do then is I want to have her lift up a little bit when she says but surely. Okay, so there's probably going to be about a 2-frame move, but surely, yeah. And then when her mother passes in front of her, she'll kind of pull back a little bit again. So I'm going to hit Control-C. I'm going to copy this keyframe down here. And then I'm going to basically have a 3-key move like that, where she's going to kind of go like this as mom passes by. And then we'll just do mom as a silhouette in the foreground, just like we did in the other shot. That'll work. Okay. It's 39 frames. I think we've already got the body highlight effect on there, so I just saved my work. I think we can render it, cut it into the show, and then we'll come back and put the mother in. So that way we can at least make sure everything's working properly in the edit. Okay, so now that rendered pretty quick because it was kind of pre-computed from the previous shot that I worked on. So now what we got to do is go back over here, cut that shot out of the show, clean our media pool, and then we're going to grab 116 and cut it back into the show. So scenes 116 116. There it is. 116 render. And as you can see, we've got a JPEG sequence and we've got a ping sequence. So what I'm going to do right now, before I do anything, is just delete this ping sequence. No need to have it in there. And then go back here and grab this sequence and cut it into the show. Boom. Okay, so 116 is right here. And that is there. Okay. But surely it can't hurt to. Okay. So basically, once this happens, the shot is over. Excuse me. Right? And so then there's the man. She comes up, smacks the coins out of his hand. Okay, so let's go back over here. And what we want to do is put in Carliana in the foreground. And basically, this should be really just a single. This is going to be a single drawing that's animated. So let's just do a vector level. I'm going to go, well, I can't look at the old one because I just deleted all the images, but B key. And let's just see what we want to do here. I'm thinking you're going to see a little bit of the sense of her bosom and a little bit of the sense of her hips. So I'm just going to basically go like that. And stretch this down here. And, hey, Ashnan. Ashnan. Did I say that right? Okay, right. Okay, so A key, global key turned on so that we can set keys for everything about translations. And now what we're going to do is actually get this up to the size it needs to be and the position it needs to be. I would say something like that. Okay, so now what we're going to do is set the initial key. I'm thinking about halfway into her line of dialogue. And then what we need to do is get her, I'm hitting the shift key, let's get Carliana across the screen. Okay? It's probably going to cut while she's still, on screen, so I'll leave her there. And then what I'm going to do is I'm basically going to go every couple frames, little up, little down, little up, little down, little up. Let's see how that works. She may be moving too slow. I don't know. I might have to scale the keys or something. Okay, and the up and down doesn't really help that much. All right, and then starting out with the really obvious nipple there on screen probably isn't like the coolest thing ever. So I'm gonna just. Okay, yeah. Okay, so now it seems pretty obvious to me that boom, you could have a blink there, kind of to Max's point. You put the blink there. And then I think after mom passes by, boom, we're going to actually put a blink there as well. And I'm just going to hit Control R. And for this shot, I think what we're going to do is leave the silhouette black at the moment, and we'll see how that plays. All right, so but surely, okay, yeah. So the did this, yeah. Okay, so now you can see the problem is that we do need to take Carliana, and we need to go ahead and get her off screen here, and we need to get her, frankly, off screen here as well. So let's see how that plays. Quick re-render, and we'll just pop it up on the big screen. But surely it can't hurt to. Okay, I'd put her eye blink just a skosh earlier, which is this one. Okay, and then the other thing is I don't want her color to be black actually. So let's go here and fiddle around a bit with the color, maybe a slightly bluish tint to it. Something like that, I think. You will need a closed mouth for the blink. Hey, Amar. Yeah, maybe, Max, maybe. You're probably right, but surely it can. So are you talking about she's got a closed mouth there? I'm not thinking that's what I'm working on anymore. I'm basically touching up another shot where she, you know, TNR was a little off character. So that's that. I feel like the contrast of the mother's still a little bit hot. And you could argue she's actually a little too, she's still a little too small, maybe. The fact is she should probably be bigger and lower on the screen, because TNR is standing up. It's not like her mother is 8 feet tall. So, yeah, a little bit of a stupid attack there. So now this is actually a great example of where using global keys is actually going to backfire. Because what's going to happen is if I scale her and adjust the size, it's going to be ruined. The scaling will only be on this key because all these other keys by default, because of the global key option, actually will have scaling keys set on them. So what I'm going to do is make my life a little simpler. I'm going to delete these keys because it turned out that the up and down really didn't help anyway. So let's just get this position correct. And then we will adjust the final key. The only reason I'm leaving this key in there is so I remember what frame it was on. So that was 28, so I guess we could just delete it. 28. Don't let me forget that, people. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, Carliana would actually be about this tall. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say she is taller, but something like that. But then she would be scaled up a bit, I believe. Let's just crop that to the camera and see how that feels. Now what we need to do is, again, go to frame 28 and get her across the screen. And I'm going to turn global key off. What that does is now I can change her position, but if I change the scaling up here, that scaling will propagate through to the other keyframe. Hope that makes sense. Kind of an important thing. Knowing when to use global key and not is kind of important. Now, and unfortunately, this is a bit of a kludgy situation where fixing what I fixed is just introducing other problems, actually. Okay, so I think what we'll do is move her up a bit. That's probably okay, actually. That's probably okay. And we'll go here, move this up a bit as well. And then I want to come back here and adjust the scaling yet again. So, actually stop. What I really need to do is change her center point. This is like stupid. I really want to actually center her here so that when I scale it, it scales to that point. That's probably not too bad. Okay, so now I'm gonna go with Max on one thing and disagree with him on the other. As far as I'm concerned, the mother passing in front of the screen is a crystal clear device. And I don't agree that it comes off like a member of the audience. You could look at it that way, but basically in the context of the edit, the mother passing through as a silhouette worked fine. However, as far as the reaction goes, that I agree with. So I'm going to say, let's do Control C, Control V, and now I'm going to hit the X key. And maybe even add another. Okay, yeah, so Well, this is a creative choice you've got to make. Okay, so the creative choice here is what's important. Is it important that we see Tianara kind of go like this? Oh, what's going on? This is bad. I don't like this. Is that what we need to do? Maybe. I'm not being sarcastic in the way I'm portraying it. I'm just trying to portray what her attitude would be. Like, because Max is saying she needs to react. So is this sort of sympathetic attitude the important thing here? Maybe. I'm going to smack another eye blink in right there. I don't think so you know, in terms of what I'm, you know, in this cartoon, is another change of expression important? My suspicion is that it's not. I'm going to go ahead and render this, look at it in the show. I like her continuing to look in the other direction. Okay, so again, this is really an important. This is one of those moments where the problem is you've got a shot. This is actually a really important point. I'm going to go over here to the edit and kind of show you what I'm talking about. Okay, so the problem is here that we have a shot here that lasts only a second, really. I mean, it's a grand total actually of 4 seconds. Okay, so it lasts 4 seconds. We know Mom's going to do something, but at this point we don't know what she's going to do. So now the question becomes, is this the moment? Okay, right now, that moment right there, is this what's important? And in some circumstances, in some stories, it would be. Okay? My sense right now would be that it's not. Okay, my sense right now is that Mom passing by and then getting over there to where she knocks the money out of the guy's hand, in other words, at this point, story is more important than character from the standpoint of what we're trying to emphasize. Because what you find is that you can always go deeper. You can always say more. You can always spell it out more. You can always express it in a little better way. There's always room for improvement. And so any shot in isolation is going to, you know, you can really debate what you're trying to accomplish with that one shot. And that's fine. If you want to do a really long shot that really says a lot and you just stay on one character, that's just a creative choice. Okay? So I'm trying to spell this out, that there's a debate here whether editorially we really need much more. The reality is that probably what should happen here is it should cut there. From an editorial standpoint, my choice, I think, is going to be that. I'm trying to favor more brisk editing. So in other words, and this has happened before, where I'll stretch a shot out and I'll do more with it, and everything I'm doing with it is cool. And then what happens is you cut it into the show and you realize it's just going on too long and you need to keep moving the edit forward. You know, just keep the story moving. We know that Tianara does not like whatever's happening right now, okay? That's a really, really important point from a filmmaking or storytelling perspective. We already know Tianara is bummed out. Do we need to show something in her eyes and her expression to really spell it out yet again? I would maintain almost certainly not. It's almost certainly going to be like one thing too many, where we're getting all melodramatic and it's like, oh, poor Tianara. Well, this is not oh, poor Tianara. What's unfolding is we're finding out about who her mother really is in a very concise way. Yeah, it's her mother she's talking to. Okay, so the mother. So let's backtrack and you guys can see what's going on here. So you get a sense of the flow of the edit. Okay, she drops the money, and he's, you know, bless you, child, and then they hear a voice. Okay, so I'll stop and pause here to kind of clarify this if I need to. So what happens is Carliana says, Tianara, you know, just like the wicked stepmother in Cinderella. She calls her name. And that's why it cuts to Mel, and he's startled. Okay, so that's what's actually going on story-wise. He blesses her for giving him money. They hear a voice, and then that startles Tianara. And then we see the mother for the first time, and she grabs a hold of her. And by the way, this little segment here is way cut down from what it used to be. This whole thing goes way faster. The whole point is she very briskly gets over there, grabs her, and jerks her up. What are you doing? He has nothing. So now this is really interesting to me. Her answer is he has nothing. So she kind of sort of knows where this is going, right? She knows her mother. She knows that her mother is a wealthy merchant. She's all about appearances. In the original script, in fact, we really belabored the mother where she's actually looking around to see if anyone notices, because she's actually embarrassed by the fact that her daughter gave money to the poor guy. All right? That's who this woman is. Well, Tianara knows that. So she kind of hoped against hope that this wasn't going to go south. But it's not entirely surprising that it did. Okay? So she says, he has nothing. Mel's like, huh? That's not cool. We do not talk to such people, she says, or something to that. But surely it can't hurt to... Okay. Boom. Now, setting aside the fact that probably this shot needs to be redone as well. Okay, so there's some animation here with the man. Like right here, this shot needs some work. But from a storytelling standpoint, I'm making the case here for you guys to understand we could spend a lot of time really, really milking all the emotion out of Tianara here. My argument is we already did. It's already happened. We don't want to tell the audience the same thing 3, 4, 5 times. Okay? So, and the reason I'm speaking fairly strongly about it is you got to realize I've been around this block. I've been down this road from the standpoint of editing films for 10 years. I've been in this situation 100 times. And invariably it turns out that cutting everything tighter and keeping things moving turns out to be the right choice. So the point here is that pretty much everything that happens after the mother crosses the screen is probably not really important. I would even argue that it probably should be cut here. It should probably be cut right there. We don't really need to see Tianara. Let's just see how that flows. But surely it can't hurt to... And I would say my judgment would be it could go either way. We could go longer or not. It's not a big deal either way. But stretching this out to where she kind of puts her head down, to me, I think the only way that works for me is if that's okay. That's okay. Actually, the eye blink helps. So you got the blink that kind of snaps us into the edit point. Okay. So the point is, well, what's about to happen here? What we know is Tianara is bummed out. What we don't know is what Carliana is going to do. Right, I agree. Having her turn around and look at her mother is just a complete waste of time. Total waste of storytelling time. And it saves animation. Exactly, that's true. Okay, and we don't want to have a total waste of time. Okay? The important thing is boom, and then boom. Now this is somewhat shocking. Okay? If you're going to milk a shot, this would probably be the one to milk, even though this shot too needs a little work. But the idea that this woman would go up to this guy who I believe is actually blind and smack these coins out of his hand, it's like, who does that? You know? So in 20 seconds, we know more about we know a lot about her mother. Very concisely, in 20 seconds, we know a lot about who this woman is. I agree with you, Darren. Arguably, the wider eyes might make the shot a little better. But remember, we are microscopically examining a single shot. And what I'm saying is, it almost always turns out when you microscopically really hone in on a single shot like that, where you're thinking too hard about trying to do too much with that one shot, because you're looking at it in isolation. You're saying, well, what could we do here from the standpoint of animation and expression and character? All that stuff is valid and good. The problem is, what usually happens is you cut it into the show and you realize it's either redundant, like it's telling you something that emotionally you already knew. And so you're going, okay, you know, let's look at our watch, because it's like, yeah, I mean, you're telling us the same thing over and over and over. We kind of already knew Tianara was not liking the direction this situation was going, right? So I'm being a little snarky to just dramatize the emotional and mental process that goes through my head when I run into situations like this, because I've been in situations like this many times with editing live action films. Again, invariably, it turns out cutting things crisply, keeping it moving, almost always turns out to be the right choice. Not 100%. But so for this, again, we're belaboring it. But for me, that little change right there is good, especially because of the eye blink that snap pops you right to that edit. I mean, it literally works as an editorial device. That eye blink helps make this cut smoother. So again, I don't like the animation here. I want to redo this shot. But man, what she just did is beyond the pale. Okay. I think it's arguable whether this shot should even last slightly longer. Just to let the audience digest the absolute nastiness of what she just did. You know? Boom. And actually, Mel's little move there at the end kind of helps with that. Again, that little move kind of keeps everything alive, you know. So boom, and then she says, this is really interesting to me. She says, "Remember who you are," and then she reaches out and grabs the pendant. And Mel's like, "What the heck? That's so wrong. Am I right?" Lucas says, "It's a little harsh." Okay, and actually, in a sense, guys, this is an example of what I was talking about. Here we've got Luca. I think it's a funny line. He says, "It's a little harsh," because Luca is always like understated, right? He understates things. So he says it's a little harsh. And then we have the monkey. Now look at what monkey does. Pops out and looks over there. Okay, so now here's the bad news, folks. Putting monkey in there, doing that for the purpose, again, in isolation of what he's... Well, and Max, what it also means is that she thinks at whatever amount of money that was, we don't know how much money it was. It's a few coins. But what we know for sure is that amount of money is utterly meaningless to this woman. Okay? So it could be a really large sum of money, but to her, it doesn't mean a thing. Having this guy not have it is way more important than anything else. I mean, that's horrible. You know, it's horrible. It's a very concise portrayal of what a callous, greedy, rich kind of person could, you know, what's the worst they could be. It seems like this is getting pretty close, other than actually harming or killing someone, you know. Anyway, what I was saying is, here now we've got Luca making his little understated thing, and then we got Monkey. Okay, let's think about this for half a second, because we're still dealing with editing. This is really, 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 really important if what you want to do is create stories. I have bad news for Dave, meaning myself. The truth is, Monkey should probably be cut out of the shot. Now, you could have him in there, maybe there. But you say, okay, this is what are we doing here emotionally? What we're doing is we're using one line of dialogue to, again, clarify for the audience who Luca is. Because we're just meeting these people. We're early in the show, and we don't know these people yet. So we've got a fairly compact thing where we're telling the audience with a single line of dialogue, giving them a sense of who this character is. Okay, so Dominic, I agree with you. That's why the monkey's in there. I like the monkey too. The problem is, from a storytelling standpoint, he probably does not belong in there other than just popping out. In other words, the line of dialogue It's a little harsh, is kind of a funny line of dialogue in the context, because it's such an understatement of how extreme the real situation is. So then the question we need to ask ourselves is, visually, is what the monkey does next, which is scowl at the situation, is that funny? And my answer is, I don't think so. It's a little bit amusing, maybe, but it's really not. In other words, the fact that monkey's always with Luca is probably an important point, but the monkey doing some acting probably isn't. Therefore, my judgment is cut it out. Get it out of there. So he says, am I right? Luca says, it's a little harsh. Monkey pops out, and then we just cut back to Mel. So I will almost guarantee you that's the right editorial choice. Is we don't need to keep the monkey going and say, oh, now we're gonna make you laugh with the monkey. Well, the problem is it's not funny. It's like, okay. It's okay, but it doesn't really help that much. So, it's when in doubt, things like this, you want to get rid of them. So it's Mel who's scowling, right? It's not. We don't need the monkey to scowl. The very next shot has Mel scowling. And again, redundancy. How many times do we have to have somebody... Okay, so at this point, if we didn't cut these things out, we would have Tianara going, oh, boo-hoo, plus the monkey scowling, plus Mel scowling. So we're telling the audience 3 times something that they actually already knew, which is, this woman appears to be a bad person, and now she just confirmed that indeed she is a bad person. Why do we need all the characters to underscore that point for the audience? If you put it in, if you leave it in, what you're doing is you're saying to the audience, by the way, audience, you're stupid. You can't figure out for yourself emotionally what's going on here, so I need to spell it out for you. No. So again, in isolation, these aspects of these shots are all fine. They're all good. In context of an edited show, you find out you can waste a lot of time on stuff that really just doesn't help move things forward. So, anyway, end of lecture on that. I want to look at the... So if we need to increase emotion of hate towards her, we need reaction first. The guy carrying plates should be sure that she's evil. And basically, Max, that's really not what's happening. What's happening is Mel is simply... I mean, he just saw a pretty girl, okay? No, we don't want the audience to feel hate for her. Max, see, again, that seems to make sense in isolation. Out of the context of the entire show, what you're saying does make sense. Okay? Out of context. In context, no, it's not important. And the reason it's not important, all we need to know is that this woman is kind of bad news and we don't like her. We don't have to hate her. We'll have reason later to hate her, because remember, downstream, Carliana gets together with Golik and plots to literally marry off her daughter for filthy lucre. Okay? So we're going to find out that we actually hate her later. Right now, we just need to know that, I don't really like this person. She's pretty evil, probably. We'll get the details downstream. Okay, so that makes sense. So the context always matters. Okay, so yeah, and you may be, because my impression is that, Max, that you're not a native English speaker. English is your second language, maybe. I'm assuming, and so you may be using the word hate in a way that you don't necessarily mean it, right? So I'm taking that into account as well. But anyway, that's enough about the editorial stuff. We've got this done. We got this done. Let's switch gears here and look at shot number 122, because there was something about the background that I did not like. So that is shot number 122. Let's go back over here. Okay, yes. Okay, so my judgment on this shot was that and by the way, there's a bit of a kludge here, because, and nobody probably noticed this, but she says, remember who you are. Okay, so the idea is that this pendant means something. Okay? We don't need to spell out. So we're getting into the same thing again here. We don't need to tell the audience what it means. Not now. We're going to find out actually at the end of episode 2 what it means. All we're doing now is planting the seed, and we're saying that this pendant symbolizes something about who TNR is, who her family is, where she comes from, something like that. That's all we need to know at this point. Okay? So she says, remember who you are. And the thing I was going to say nobody probably noticed is that this shot is run in reverse. So actually what happens is the pendant magically floats up into her hand. And I may fix that, but I don't think I need to, because if you look at it at speed, you never notice that, right? So anyway, that's just the reversal of this shot. So this shot, she drops it. And then this is actually okay, so now this is a great point. I'm glad this happened because I just realized something. What we're about to see right now is precisely the very thing we were debating about on the other shot a little bit ago. Okay? It's already in the script, it turns out. Which is, after... okay, so we say, we're not going to spell it out here. We're not going to go too far with this. Let's cut away from it and keep things moving. Well, we're going to find out in a moment here why. Max, I don't care about. Because episodes 1 and 2 are very clearly a 2-part double-length pilot anyway. So yeah, of course there are threads in episode 1 that get picked up and clarified in episode 2. That's just the nature of a double-length pilot. I mean, the 2 episodes may wind up being released together anyway, right? Okay, so my point was, let's just keep going, because what we're exploring here today so far is a lot about editorial decisions. Okay, we didn't spell out for the audience too much TNR's reaction yet, but see, look what happens. She says, remember who you are, and then for the audience, we don't want to forget about Mel and Luca, right? So we go back to them. Tom makes a good point, by the way. And then, so we agree that this is harsh. Yeah, this is pretty bad. And so then Mel basically looks askew at the situation, and then the mother drops the pendant. And guess what? This is the thing in this shot that we've all been looking for in this discussion. She says right here, but we have so much. And then, so as far as I'm concerned, this moment here where she drops the pendant again and TNR says, but we have so much. She says it quietly, like she doesn't want to say it too loud and make Mom mad, you know. But in point of fact, that's exactly what happens. And then the mother says, I've heard enough. And by the way, this shot is really bad and needs to be redone. The characterization of Carliana is awful. Okay, but she says, I've heard enough. Balder! And then she confines Tianara to the wagons. And then Mel says, wow. Oh, well. And then he gets on with his life and falls and drops the bowls, and everything switches to a completely different thing. Okay? So, so yeah, I feel pretty strongly that some of the things we were debating on the other shot, it turns out are already in the script, are already addressed. We just have to kind of get through about 40 seconds of show, if that, to get to it. Why the focus distorted with the person walking in front of the camera? You're talking about, I think the person walking across the camera doesn't add anything to the story unless there's a specific reason for you to use that. Well, again, I would say, okay, so Amar, since we're pretty close to real time here, let me ask you, are you referring to this? Is that what you're referring to? So I'm going to wait 5 seconds for Amar to say yes or no. I'm assuming that's what he's talking about. Take a sip of my tasty beverage. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. So again, like everything, we can debate whether it's like perfect editing, but basically, yeah. Here's what's going on. The mother is not in motion, right? Okay. So I'm going to explain to you logistically and emotionally why that's in there. Okay. First of all, the mother is not in motion. She's scolding her daughter. And what we're seeing is that when the daughter objects, she doesn't even get the sentence out of her mouth. She doesn't even get it. She doesn't even say it. And the mother's not even listening to her. Well, how do we know that? Because she walks past her. So here she's talking to her. And if you were watching the show, you'd certainly know that that was the mother walking across the screen. And then she shows up here. Okay, so what the Amar's question a moment ago is a great example of everything I've been talking about. In isolation, you look at this shot and you go, what the heck is that thing walking across the screen? What is that? Or like Max said, wow, it looks like we're in a theater and somebody got up and went to the bathroom. Yes, in isolation, all of those objections are correct. In context, no. In context, everyone's going to know exactly what's going on. She's saying her line, and the mother just ignores her and zaps past her, and then shows up over here. It took us all of 3 seconds to definitely figure out exactly what was going on. So that's why there's, this really, really, really underscores the importance of context. Okay, so I think the shot is mirrored. Let me see here. Oh, you're talking about, well, let's see here. Yes. Well, I mean, I don't know if you're talking about like the 180-degree rule or that type of thing, but basically, you are correct. I think this is one of those things probably no one would ever notice, but I'll think about it, and later I may change this shot. Okay. But what Dominic is pointing out is this: if we're really gonna zoom in here and correct this, she should be looking out, and the mother should be looking back. Why? Well, because the mother passes this side of Tianara in front of her, which doesn't really make sense. So their positions, Tianara should be here, and the mother should be here. The mother should be looking off that way, and Tianara should be looking forward off this way. So, yeah, you're correct about that. It would be interesting. Sometimes it works in situations like this to actually flip the shot. Just flip it. Why did the mirroring horizontally oh, I see. Give me half a second. I'm going to take the camera push out of it. Just for kicks and giggles. Yeah, the problem is, of course, it flips Tianara too, right? So there's really not a great solution there other than to fix the shot. So I'll get to that. These are all good ideas. But yeah, I definitely kind of broke the rules there on that shot as far as the positioning of the characters. And my only excuse is, again, man, this was done a long time ago, and I don't know what the heck I was thinking at the time. So you guys will cut me a little slack for that. You could shorten it even more. The mother can start to move sooner while the girl's still talking. Even greater disregard for the feelings of the girl. I agree. And here, I would argue basically things are positioned correctly here, because in this long shot, what you're saying is that the mother really previously was standing here, but now you're into the problem of, well, what about this brick wall, because they're kind of positioned incorrectly with it. It's highly debatable if you took the whole I mean, this shot really does probably need a little different background, but yeah, there's a lot of things to fix here. But the most important thing is definitely the continuity of the storytelling. The blessing and the curse of live streaming, the editing. You'll get useful comments and contradicting opinions. Right. No, I mean, Darren, this is all good. I think for me as kind of the instructor guy here, the very important takeaway is the importance of looking at how your shots work in context of the edit. Can this be done with a cut shot that focuses on mom's disdain? You could. But of course, we kind of have that here, even though it's not a super close up. And I don't think, the way you're stating the question, Amar, the question then becomes, do we need to show the mom's disdain? Do we actually need more information for our audience here? I kind of would argue probably not. If anything, we're swinging in the in the opposite direction where we're really saying too much. So I'm going to look at what Max just said, though, as far as this. I think that this is probably a fair point. If we take this, and let's even move her more briskly like that. Okay, I'm just going to go ahead and render it. You guys can't see this because I'm on the other screen, but I'm just doing a really quick re-render. And we'll just see how it works, you know? So, but okay, yeah. Now that is better, but the reason it's better is because it actually allows us. What we have here is just, I guess nonplussed would be the word, maybe. Yeah. My opinion would be, I like the idea that mom passes by more briskly, showing utter disdain for her daughter's feelings. But the problem is now, this second move right there, boom, that is completely unnecessary. What really needs to happen is mom crosses, and then she finishes her sentence, and then cut away. So this needs to be cut right here. And now I need to go back to Tahoma and look at this. Yep, this key right here is absolutely unnecessary. All of this stuff is just noise. It's just noise that is not helping the shot. Okay, there's that. You know, again, when in doubt, chopping things down is almost always the right choice. Okay, yeah, and now I must say, I really dislike this shot. So we are definitely going to rethink this shot. This shot was done, I think, in Blender. Basically, you've got these little image components, like his hand and her arm, like right there, where this is just a mechanical. You know, this is as far as animation technique, it's about as cheeseball as it gets. And I definitely don't love it. So and now I'm going to stretch this just a little bit longer. I don't mind the eye blink. Yeah, I mean, I don't mind that at all. Let's see, let's get that blink right there and smack into the next shot. Blink. Alright. Okay, I think more vector brush performance along with better rigging system would be better workflow than most post-effects. Anyone to the new particle illusion standalone update. So that I don't really. Yeah, I mean, that's a fair point too, Tom. Actually. Yes. Yeah, and that would probably, yeah, I agree. Let's do that. That's pretty cheap, quick and dirty, a little bit of an improvement. So it seems like you had a focal blur idea a couple weeks ago on something. Probably, oh, I don't know, probably about 20, something like that. Let's just see what that looks like. Yeah. Let's see if that plays a little better. You know, it's one of those little 5%ers. It might be good. Not that much. Not that much. That is too much. I am gonna say more of a softening than an actual blur. Okay, so now we have a bit of a choice. We look here at my to-do list. We got shot number 124 where Carliana is off character. Okay. Which is up here, not here. What I was going to do is fix this background on 122. I was actually going to add a little bit of focal blur because we basically have an underdog style background here, Bullwinkle or something. And it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to introduce some a little bit of focal blur on that. Obviously it could be redone. I don't know that it needs to be, but so Soda Pop is talking about particle illusion. Right, Max. The thing there is Max is. I mean, that is something I was aware of. The thing is that he would be. The problem is that what's not clear right there is that he's not looking at the coins. Okay, so there's plenty of other things you could criticize on this shot, but let's redo this shot. Let's just fix this shot right now, okay? Let's have some fun, rock and roll on this thing, and I'm just gonna go to it. The original shot was done in a mix of Blender and Krita, so what do we got here? I'm at the 1.5 hour mark, so it's probably a good time to be shifting gears here. So now I want to think about this from a storytelling standpoint. Carliana just crossed the screen, and now let's just think about this. Let's just think about this. I want to play around with a few ideas. Okay, this is probably what I'm going to do now is probably the reason most people ever come to my channel, and I don't do it enough, which is basically just essentially pencil test animation. Actually doing the real animation work. I am going to swing her arm back fairly aggressively like this. And I'm going to allow myself maybe to have multiple shots within a single Tahoma scene here, possibly. Okay, so what are you talking about, Dave? Well, the first thing we're going to do right now is save this as shot number 117. File, save all. I think one of the, okay, hold on, 117 already exists. That's interesting. Okay, cancel. Let me see if I can open another instance of Tahoma. Pardon me, sorry guys. I tried to move the microphone out of the way, but I'm going to open up 117 here and see what it is, because maybe I did that shot in OpenToonz or Tahoma. Just not sure. Just not sure. Oh, well, okay. Look at that. Let's look at this. Okay, these, yes, these are raster images that were cut and pasted from Krita. Okay, and then what I did was I used the I'm looking at Amar's comments. Are you talking to me, Amar? You did a sketch of your characters. I don't know how to share it with you. I'll post to the folder I shared with you on Google Drive. Yeah, that's fine. I have to finish the tall, lanky guy with the beanie on his head with the white goatee. Oh, you're talking about, yes, you're talking about Asher. Excellent. That's cool, man. Thanks for doing that. That's pretty cool. Yeah, you can, of course, you can email it to me as well at premiermediadesign at gmail.com. Premier Media Design. That's my commercial media business. Premier Media Design at gmail.com. Anyway, let's see here. Okay, so now now I'm conflicted. Yeah, this just doesn't work. I mean, it works-ish, but it's just too choppy, man. I wanna do better. So I think what I'll do is just kind of go forward on the path that I was on. So I'm gonna go ahead and save this scene as. Actually, no. Let's do it this way. Let's go here, and we'll call this file. Save scene as. 117. We'll just call this 117 redo. That way I can keep the assets from the original version around. I don't know why I would want to, but not the end of the world. But in a moment, we're about to actually do some animation, which will be fun. Okay. Let's deal with Carliana first. All right. I'm going to put that like this. So you'll see here, guys, the actual frames are full HD. And what the camera sees is broadcast HD. That gives me a little crop range. B. And I'm going to do what I often do not do, but it is fun, which is frame by frame animation. I'm going to put the beggar on a separate level. I'm also going to sketch him in with the old charcoal. And now I want to think about, let's go to color here, and I'm putting this on the old man's, or the beggar's level, because I'm going to be starting out with just a single drawing of this guy. So what I want to do is basically get him in the shot and then sort of get a sense of the perspective that she's going to be moving. She's not going to go very far. I think we're going to get her like one brisk footstep into the shot, and then we're going to cut to the beggar up close. Okay, so that works for the purpose of sort of getting mapped out what we're trying to do. This should not take more than 1 second. So let's go back over here, and okay. We got kind of a choice here. I think what I'm going to do is let me just think about the pace of the steps. Bump, bump. Okay, so it's a half a second. I mean, normally a half a second is a step. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually hit the B key and put in 4 frames. Okay, so that I can actually get to her destination. So I'm going to put the onion skin there. I only want her to move about this far. Okay? So now what I want to do is turn the onion skin back off, because this is actually really important. Okay? What I want to do is really get the feel on this pose. So I'm going to say, in other words, I don't want to be constrained by the previous drawing and be thinking about how to make the two of them work together. I want to get the key poses in there and then tween it, and then sort of figure out how to make it work. Her hand's swinging down here, going way out here, so this is probably going to want to be more. I don't know if what I just said actually made tons of sense, guys, but just go with me at this moment, because I'm trying to get into the zone here. So as I always talk about working from the known to the unknown, what I'm trying to do right now is I'm saying anatomically, what do I know for sure? I know for sure that I want to. So this leg would be forward. I know I want to get her into a very forceful attitude, going into the screen. So boom, boom, boom. And being mildly dyslexic, I have to really think about things that might be getting reversed. So let's just look at the arc of her body here. So there's her butt. Basically, that leg is throwing back pretty hard. Okay, there's her bosom. She's kind of a skinny lady. She's definitely not particularly overweight. Okay. As I've said many times here, when something actually makes me blurt out laughing, that's usually a good sign. So it's almost like her elbows are a little bit double jointed. Right? So when she swings them back, it's almost like they kind of bend back a little bit, and then we'll make this line pretty straight. You know, it's like if you read the Disney animation, The Illusion of Life, that's one thing you learn is you want to balance your curves against straight lines. Usually you don't want both, you know, curves and against curves. Okay, so we'll say maybe give her a little bit more booty there. Okay, so now how do we connect these up together? Let's figure that out. Okay, so if this is her spine, so I'm actually holding my stylus above the screen, and I'm going to just put a mark there. I'm going to put a mark there. Okay, so all that is telling me where her spine is. Okay, so now I'm going to work from the known to the unknown. Some stuff's really swinging around a lot, like her arms, but her shoulders aren't. Her shoulders are shifting in weight a little bit, but basically they're kind of stationary relative to the rest of her body. So therefore, if I know her shoulder gets from here to here, so working backwards, this probably should be about there. Okay, so I don't want to get too locked into this idea. Shoulders here. Okay, so now this is an interesting one. Here's the shoulder, and it actually is moving uphill. So let's get the arc of her, you know, her sort of, what do you call the, I mean, this sort of girdle of the trapezius and whatnot. Okay, so you can see this is, so now we've got a change in scale and a change in the tilt. Boop, boop, boop. Right? Okay, that's working. So if she's going to get to here, you think about the curve of that. And we're trying to really move it forcefully. So we'd be about here. And so for simplicity, because her arms are swinging hard, let's make these basically straight lines. Okay? So there's the hand. Here would be the hand here. It probably would actually get lost here, but we'll mark it in there anyway. Okay. Booty. I'm gonna guess and kind of hope that the motion on the tweens will give me a little bit of latitude in terms of where I position things. But I like that. I like that. She's marching. You could argue that her head, like this would be the base of her neck on the skull, meaning that the head is actually tilted a little bit off to the right, her right, whereas here it's clearly tilted to the left. So that's a good thing. So that would mean probably we're going to have it kind of straightening up here. Pretty straight-ish. Little bit of a tilt. Okay, so I hope this is helpful for you guys or whatever, because it's sure fun. I mean, I love doing it, and I want to do more of it. It's actually kind of the main difference in my workflow lately is I've sort of quit fighting the gremlin of trying to avoid the time it takes to do ink and paint. Because if you draw another drawing, you got another drawing, you got to ink and paint, right? But man, I do like the results when I go ahead and do what I know how to do. What instinctively I think is pretty easy for me, which is animation. I mean, it's really just making people move and emote and stuff like that. It seems to me that everywhere where I've tried to basically avoid work and, you know, ostensibly make the process more efficient, all it's really done is make the show worse, basically. I hate to say it, but... And so that's why, you know, going through here and doing these corrections. So this would be flattening out. That's interesting. This actual, you know, this is a slice through her body. Right now, we are looking down on the slice, whereas back here, we're looking up to it. I think that's super cool. Right here, it would actually be almost flat. So, okay. So now, we're going to say we would maybe allow her a 1 beat. Let me see how fast this goes. Let's go ahead and stretch this down to here and see how fast this plays. Yeah, I think we should keep going. Now the question becomes, boom, bop. Yeah, I'm just going to keep rocking here. So, boom, boom. I don't know if I want to put a whole step in there. It seems a little... Oh, it's a huge difference from what I've seen you do. I jump forward. Well, I'm glad you feels that way, because when I look at the way the show looks, it's, to me, there's no contest. Now, I will say this. There's one caveat to that. Okay? So this is what the caveat is. If you look at this shot, if what I was really trying to do is really embrace the Nickelodeon, you know, Cartoon Network sort of idea, where it's a more rigged approach, and you're going to do everything in 3/4 view, like, you know, Family Guy or whatever, or Wild Kratts is a show on PBS that kind of has that look. If I was really going for that approach, then this does look pretty good. But if I'm going for this sort of hybrid westernized kind of anime type of thing, I like this much better. And I think this is what I was trying to do when I created the show, right? So, you know, it's all a choice at the end of the day. But okay, have you ever thought, and I'm sure ask you quite, why don't you do full test the animations, pencil test before you ever go into doing ink and paint? Well, normally I do. It just depends. Normally, lately, I do exactly that. That's what I've been doing most of the time. Okay, so I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually add another color here. Let's make it green. Okay, kind of a dark green. All right, and here's why. I'm going to go, and I guess I still want charcoal. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, and I'm going to, actually, let's do it here. This is a better idea. Let's grab this, cut this, cancel. Hello? I guess I want to copy it, not cut it. Okay, I'm going to put this on the old man level. Okay, so what I'm trying to do here is I'm going to say, now because this is a separate palette entry, I can always erase it by just making it transparent, right? So now what I can do is I can put a line here. Sorry. Okay. Let me undo that. Okay, this is kind of an important little step I need to take here. There's two ways I could do this. I could move the drawing, which is what I'm going to do, or I could change my preferences so that it doesn't auto-create the levels. But what I'm trying to do here is actually map the progression of her spinal cord. Okay, that's interesting. Oh, I see. That was kind of dumb. So that's there, that's there. So we got those 4. Okay, so now the question becomes, well, where would we go from here? And so I'm going to say it would be boom, 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 boom. I think. All right. So we'll see if that helps, but I think it will. So now I'm going to go back here. And so I'm looking at this one right here. I'm actually pointing. Okay, so now all I'm doing is I'm clarifying. Excuse me. I'm clarifying for myself which mark, spinal mark, matches which frame. Now, having done that, it's debatable whether these marks still need to be in here. So I used to do this in Krita all the time, actually, where I would just use a dummy layer, throw a dummy layer up there to just kind of map out the timing and work out the arcs and things like that. Okay, so we've got this progression on this direction with the shoulders, and I'm going to go ahead and turn on the onion skins. This is where onion skins can definitely be a bit useful. Okay, so we're going down, up. Okay. Okay, same kind of situation here. We were going from up to down. This is actually not quite true. This shoulder seems to have pretty much stayed in a static position relative to that sort of, I don't know what you'd call it, the thoracic girdle or something. And that I don't like at all. That would be a jolt. Yeah, or not, actually. I'm actually thinking that should come up a bit. Yeah, this one's wrong. I guess for simplicity, we'll just kind of stretch it up like that. B. Okay, so this is a little bit of a laborious procedure where you can't really see what's going on. But the idea is just to get those guides in there. That's working pretty well. Okay, looking at the comments. One thing you need to change for the lines of the cloth to be smooth. You can kind of cut and slice them into parts. The lines of the cloth. I don't know what you're talking about, the lines of the cloth. I mean, if you're talking about her garment, I'm not even thinking about that right now. I don't care about that right now. I just want to get the motion, the mechanics of the motion working first. Then we'll worry about things like the cloth. That's relatively easy to do, by the way. Okay, so we got this. Oh boy, are those onion skins making things hard to see now. Okay, yeah. Arm, arm, arm. Sometimes this is kind of useful. Like if you just kind of move fast, boom, it just kind of tells you what it wants to be. I just have to get my fingers trained to work the keyboard here. Boom. Okay, so her bum relative to the perspective. I'm actually going to keep trying to run with this. I'm going to try to work really fast here and see what it does. Excuse me. Which means instead of seeing the process in color refine, you would work on finalizing the animation first. Right. Believe me, I get it. I mean, that's the traditional workflow for sure. And what I'm doing right now is pretty more indicative of what I've been doing lately and think I want to do more of. Because, I mean, it's fun, and at the end of the day, it looks better. So if it takes a little longer, you know, my point lately, and believe me, I've learned this lesson too many times, and it's a little embarrassing, but the point is that what good does it do to, you know, have it get done quicker if you have to redo it? You know? And I'm not going to be satisfied with something that's kind of half-assed. So at the end of the day, okay, so I'm going to put a box right there for her, kind of represent her hand. Okay, now that's moving pretty quick. I think that's okay. That maybe should be extended slightly down that way. All right, and then this hand. It's really a challenge because it's moving on an arc while also moving away from us, right? So I like it. I like it. I like it a lot. This is probably, as I said, this is really probably what I should be doing a lot of the time because with one little caveat, which is that I have definitely seen there is a danger that, you know, you do a pencil test and it can look amazing, and then if you're not really careful about keeping the characters on character, especially if they're turning in 3D space, you can have something that like this that in its really rough form looks amazing. I'm not saying this looks amazing. It looks pretty good, but I'm saying you can have something that looks amazing, and when you actually finish it out, it gets stiff and definitely is not as good as you thought it was. So there, I think probably we need a little more bosom action down below. I'm going to give her a little arch in her back there to sort of drive home the attitude. So I'm kind of looking at this angle. Boom, boom. This is kind of interesting. It's sort of a little L shape that evolves. Okay. Okay, so now we'll get we got this going down into her shoulder blades. That was a little low. I blew that one right there. So you're thinking about every single one of these arcs. Like this is this kind of is sort of a concave into convex, and now it's kind of straightening out a little bit. It's getting tighter, but then it snaps back out when her weight shifts. You know, so you got all these little relationships that you're thinking about. Okay. Okay, so look at the bigger from right. Oh yeah, it was as far as the beggar goes, there's too many things wrong with it to even discuss, really. I mean, as I said yesterday, I think it was, this entire section of the show is the weakest part of the show. It's the part that needs there's plenty of shots that just need to be fixed up and improved. And so I'm going to keep finding more things to fix, I'm quite sure. It can be endless. Okay, so now her bosom would be hidden, essentially. Okay, now I'm looking at this shape here. Okay, just flattens out. It actually turns a little bit, kind of turns from a C to an S, you might say. And then you get this little jutting out with her hip as she powers into that next step, you know. So, boom. The leg, the leg, the leg. Okay. Let's get the cuff. And again, I'm deliberately making her arms really pretty stiff. Like, it's like she's swinging her arms hard, right? Because she's very deterministically pounding her way over there. Okay, so again, you can see we're actually almost breaking her elbow. I'm not trying to do that in the sense of the way, you know, you saw in the old Disney cartoons, you know, Goofy's feet would literally be flipped inside out or backwards. That's not what I'm trying to do, but it's all, we're getting perilously close to that kind of thing. And let's face it, there's really nothing more difficult than a walk cycle. So, fun stuff. Boom, a boom, a boom. Bop, bop, bop. Well, getting back to the whole idea of crowdfunding and social networking and everything that goes with it, I was thinking a lot yesterday. Well, not a lot, but I was thinking about sizzle versus steak, right? And I was thinking about John Carter, the Edgar Rice Burroughs Mars books, because back in the 60s, I think those books passed into the public domain somewhere around 2000. It would have been 70 years after he wrote them, I believe. But the thing that was interesting to me about it is when they re-released those books in the 60s, there was this huge resurgence of interest in Burroughs. Now, Burroughs wrote Tarzan and the other main series of books that he's sort of associated with is the John Carter Warlord of Mars books, which the awful Pixar movie John Carter was based on. But point of the story is that that resurgence in interest in Burroughs in the 60s was very, very much, I believe, because of the cover art and illustrations in the books by Frank Frazetta. So if those books hadn't been republished or re-released with the Frazetta art, I'm just not so sure the big Burroughs resurgence in the 60s would have happened. So, you know, my point is that they understood that. It's like Roger Corman as a filmmaker. He understood the importance of the poster. You know, if the poster sucks, you're not going to get people to try it in the first place. So your movie might still suck, or your show, or what, your comic book, your magazine, whatever it is. It might suck, or it might not. Hopefully it doesn't. But if it doesn't suck, but people aren't drawn in to give it a chance based on the superficial stuff that maybe you as the creator don't care as much about, you know, like the poster. I mean, it's like, of course, we're painters, so we want to make posters. But I'm just saying, I say superficially because what I'm interested in is animation and the characters and the story, you know. So you sort of have this tug of war where there's a certain amount of time you need to spend acknowledging the fact that if people aren't if people are not coaxed into giving it a chance, then it actually doesn't matter if your show is wonderful or if it sucks. Either way, nobody's going to watch it. Whereas if you get the sizzle part right, then hopefully they're going to find out that the steak part of it is good, right? And they're going to get on board with your show or your cartoon or whatever it is you're making. So this is something I'm thinking about, is that, geez, Dave, you really need to think about, you're not doing your audience a disservice by trying to make a poster that gets them to give the show, or I mean, it could be a poster, it could be a lot of things, but, a pitch video, whatever. A pitch video for a crowdfund. There has to be a story there that people can get on board with. In my case, I think the story is pretty simple. I always wanted to create a cartoon. I danced around the edges of it for years making films, and I do enjoy filmmaking. But, if you go back to me in high school, what I really wanted to do was create cartoons. Actually, that was truly the thing I wanted to do when I was in high school. I even had plastic that could be used for making cells, but I didn't have any way to take the pictures. I didn't have any way to make the paintings. There's so many things about it that I didn't have what I needed to do it. But I kind of did. And when I look back on it, in hindsight, if I'd have really been determined, I think I could have done it. But back then, high school kid. And then, of course, you get into life and you raise your kids and you have your business and you're doing this and you're doing that. And at some point, you go, well, what about this thing that way back when I really wanted to do, where I just wanted to hunker down, put my nose to the grindstone and just tell these stories, That's all I want to do, I just want to do my thing. And you guys make it more fun in a sense, because it's nice to be able to kind of be spitballing with a small community, while you're doing this work. Okay, I gotta look at there was a movie which they got Pablo Picasso to make a poster. He asked for 2 crates of the best Yugoslavian wine. Well, Picasso, I don't have much of an opinion about Picasso, frankly. I mean, obviously a lot of people are fond of Picasso's work. It's like talking about, in music, it's like talking about Bach on the one hand, in the Baroque period. And when somebody says that, after Bach, basically Bach did it all in his music. That some people say that. And there's a case to be made for that. You have to look really hard through okay, I don't know why we're frozen here. And by the way, just while I'm thinking about it, I think we could probably kill this. Well, I guess we'll keep it around for the palette, maybe. But we may have a problem here. Oh, it looks like we're okay. Things froze up for some reason. Yeah, when I was doing Heal by Grace 2, hiring Sean Young was pretty easy. So, I mean, if you think about getting a artist or a famous actor or whatever, it's all kind of the same thing. Most of these people, I think, especially creative people, they just want to work. They just want to stay busy. Everything's not going to be, Oscar material. That's okay. So I would say that I've achieved the goal here pretty well. And what I'm going to do now is I'm actually going to let this just roll for about 2 minutes while I take a quick break. I'll be back. I'm back. Okay, I like what I see. Now the important thing here, as far as I'm concerned, is, and I can do it on the same level because this is really just a guide, and so really this is the pencil test. But now we're getting into the aspect of it that is kind of unclear in the prior version. I want to make sure I have the right, I want to have this guy up on my other screen because I want to, I'm basically going to change his demeanor so that he's actually looking up into the sky. Okay, he's looking up into the sky with his eyes are going to be like this. They're not going to have pupils because we want it to be clear that the guy's blind. Okay, and he's going to be smiling. So I'm going to try to, in a very compact way, I'm going to try to really ramp up the emotion of what this guy experiences in as few frames as possible. And I think the way to do it is have the guy be happy. He just got a gift that for him means he can eat today. And so now he's kind of got this crooked nose. He's just looking up into the sky and he's happy. Okay, so now the only problem we have here is I made it too big. But that's not too bad. Alright, so we need to, and I think maybe even turn it up a little more. And then instead of counting per se, I'm going to try to make it so his hands are just feeling the coins. Just kind of figuring out what have I got here, you know, kind of thing. Alright, so I'm going to just play with that. So this finger is kind of out, and the others are kind of in. And then, so we'll give him a thumb right there. And then kind of, his hand is sort of cupped. Okay? So he's going to be kind of like, what have I got here? And then all of a sudden she's going to come into the frame in front of him. And actually, you know what would be even more cool? I just thought I know what to do. We might have her silhouette come in here, like about here. But what we should do, and I'm going to make a note here so I don't forget, is just put shadow covers him. So what will happen is we could just mat it out. We could just take a shape that moves over him that's matted to his character so that it looks like her shadow is starting to cover him. And now we've got a really dense, really compact way to sort of paint some foreboding into the shot that was probably missing before. Okay, so I suspect if I don't miss my bet here, I'll bet you guys are all looking at that and agreeing with me like, oh God, that's so much of a better idea. Am I right? I'll bet you it is, because yeah, that seems like a way, way, way better approach. Okay, so now we have a little problem here with his forearm. Honestly, that's not quite right. His forearm would actually be sort of occluded. Yeah, it'd be more like that. Okay. So yeah, you guys are out there. Oh yeah, definitely do. I only say that because usually when I'm doing the right thing, I know it. You know what I mean? And when I'm chimping out and trying to work fast and take shortcuts, I also know it. And learning not to be in that sort of stupid self-delusion of denial, you know, is something I'm working on. Because at the end of the day, man, I want to do good work. You know, I really do. Okay. Momoristics. Just post Blender. Momoristic. Shame on you. Blender. We're not using Blender today. I used Blender yesterday. Okay. So now the question becomes, if we're thinking kind of sort of anime-ish, which I am, I think I want to make a duplicate, and then, but I want to redraw things. I don't want to use animation tools quite so much. Okay, so that means what we have to do is just get his hand, and I can do this very roughly right now. Just get his hand down here like this. That's probably going to be maybe 2 frames. I'm going to duplicate that again. And probably, I'll bet you, we'll see, but I think maybe what I could do here is I might be able to create a loop, an animation loop with his hands that just pretty much tells the story. So this is a little tricky because it's like really easy to suggest what's going on in a pencil test, but then when you do the ink, you know, it might look a little crappy. So let's play with this for half a second. Let's go ahead and loop this a few times and just see if it feels okay. That level doesn't really need to be in there, so let's just see. I might have blown it here. Not quite. Not quite. I think I like the 2. I like putting it on 2s, but I'm thinking what I want to do is I want to move his hand actually over like this. Hold that for a little longer, and then maybe come back to 11. Let's just see. I don't want to have things moving constantly and spell it out too much. Actually, I think that's it. I think that's all we need. That tells the story. Doesn't it? Tell me if I'm wrong here, people. And then what would happen is I'll go ahead and use this. I'll just delete all these lines. Okay, well that's not exactly what I intended to do. I'll leave it up here. And then down here, do I really need to... I don't even need to draw that in there. That's a little bit silly. So what we're going to do is have the encroaching shadow. So it's boom, boom, boom. Shadow covers him. And then at the last, probably the last 3 to 4 frames, we'll actually see the silhouette of her body just come into frame. And then probably, let's just assume we know that that's what we're going to do, and now we'll keep going. Let's do this. 1, 2, 3. I'm not concerning myself too much with Carliana's characterization right now. Okay, we'll come back to that in half a second. Boom, boom, boom. Okay, so she's got, I'll deal with it here because this is where she stops moving. So she's got a turned up nose. And she's got kind of these witchy poo kind of eyes. Very bony cheeks. So we're kind of moving a little bit in the comic booky direction here a little bit, but I'm liking what I see. So I am liking what I see. So we're gonna just roll with it, man. That test is 10 times better than the original, even if it left like this. I agree with you, Max. I mean, like I said, I know when I'm doing decent work, and this is definitely more. I'll just be a little transparent here, folks. I suspect what I'm doing here right now, this is what people who come to my channel really want to see and have probably always wanted to see. It's what I want to see. You know, this is what I would want to watch someone do. You know, really make it come to life if you can. You know, if I can pull it off, I'm going to try. And then this is not quite right. She needs to have a look of stunned disapproval. And then I want to consider, so you can see, of course, why this shot's going to have to be redone completely, because it looks completely stupid compared to what I'm doing now. But for reference purposes, it's kind of useful. B key. Now this is also an example where probably it's going to turn out that I'll be able to just have this one picture of her and then just animate it on these two frames. Just move her into frame. I don't think that's going to have to be redrawn. And I want to make her eyebrows a little bit higher, like that. Just a little bit of that sort of stern disapproval. Now I'm seeing something. Now that I put in her irises, actually, she doesn't look nasty enough, so I'm going to change my mind. I'm actually going to go further in this direction. Alright. That's more probably what we're looking for. Okay, so now the question is, how long would that hold? Not sure, but let's just see. Stomp, stomp, stomp. She comes in. Yeah. Okay. Now let's go crazy with this. All right. Watch this. I'm not going to do a duplicate. I'm not going to try to leverage what I already do before, because it'll just suck the life out of the thing. I'm not even going to use onion skins. I just want to go get a drawing in here. 1, 2. Actually, let me rethink that. Yep, I want to go this direction instead, because I need her. I'm really going to exaggerate this. Okay. And then let me just move that up a little bit, and I think this up as well. Oops, didn't mean to do that. Okay, B key. You know, and the thing about this, the thing about what I'm doing is, right now, what I'm doing right now is what comes most naturally to me. I mean, when I was in high school, I was doing, you know, I was into John Buscema. You know, I was into Buscema and Frazetta. You know, I loved the action that those guys could impart into a drawing. So I'm going to make this very simple, just to get the feeling. So that's going to hold. And now I'm going to say 3 more cells. And then we're going to probably have a hold. So let's just keep going. Her body weight would push this way. then smack this way, and she would almost be looking happy. So again, I'm doing this super simple for now, just to get the, and this is wrong. This is wrong. She would be coming, she would actually be coming in like this. And her body weight would swing back around again. So now she's kind of, her expression is basically demonic, like looking down, but yet happy. So there's the basic idea there. Okay, I have a feeling this is going to play really nicely. Let's give it a shot and see what we get. Bam! Am I right? Raise her lip a bit to show disgust. Boom. Boom. Okay, so I'll be honest with you guys. If the truth of the matter is, if I keep doing what I'm doing here, and as I go through and I start fixing these shots up and stuff, I would be willing to bet that this what I'm doing right now is what is really needed to take the show from being, you know, kind of, yeah, it's kind of cool, to being like, wow, this is actually really good. You know, that's my sense. So she's moving fast here. Let's get her eye lines in there. This is obviously almost a motion blurry kind of situation where we're actually looking up. That's her bosom there. And then the body weight comes back around. And basically her head is tilted this way. Boom. Man, she's a meanie. I don't like Carliana. No wonder TNR wants to get out of the house. Okay, I'll have to come back and definitely tighten up her characterization here, because it's a little too demonic, but it does tell the story. So let's just kind of get the eye zones mapped here. And then the turned up nose, boom, turned up nose. So this all moves pretty fast. Okay, I'm going to hit the M key and flip this so I can really dial in this expression. I like it. Okay, and her shoulders are a little high on this shot, or this frame. Yep, that's what we're talking about. Keep her on character, man. Keep her on character. Go, 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 go. Okay. Demonic is another path. Come to the dark side. Hey, dead pianist. So I want to make this less excited and a little bit more resolute, if you will. That's working. That is working. And then we're going to end here. And like I said, this is a little extreme on the eyes. And it almost, if you think about it, for her to be really, really cruel and to not be so demonic, in other words, it's almost like she's just comfortable with this. This is just normal behavior. For her, this is the way things should be. You know, this chaff of the world, this poor beggar, you know, he's gotten what he deserved in life. Or something, you know. So it's almost a sickeningly kind look on her face. You know, you guys know what I'm saying? It's creepy. It's really creepy. Now her nose is too big. That's what happens when you zoom in too much. And now her eyes actually look a little... we're back to what we were dealing with earlier. In isolation, somebody out there is probably going, nah, I don't know. I like the demonic look better. But I think in context with where we're going in the story, I think it was a little extreme. But yeah, she's actually got a look somewhat like Lon Chaney in in The Phantom of the Opera, right? Oh, that's no good. Erase! Erase! Alright, let's just see. I definitely don't like that characterization. But, hey, I reserve the right to blow it once in a while, okay? There we go. That's better. This, I'm gonna... One thing I've also been learning lately is, if it's not quite working, just erase it and do it over. Don't try to fix it. There we go. There we go. So now what I'm doing is I'm using that charcoal marker to just feel it. And I'm looking for signals in my gut where I'm like, oh, she just went off character. It just went wrong, right? I'm trying to really listen to my instincts in that regard. Now here we've got a little problem where that's not quite high enough. Erase that. And this pose is important because this is where she lands. This is the last thing you're going to see, and the camera's going to hold on it for a bit. So this drawing needs to be pretty accurate. Okay, let's start building out some of the infrastructure around this woman that makes her character what it is. Okay, I think I'm pretty close. It's not like spot on perfect, but it's really, really close. Really close to what I'm looking for. Okay. So let's see what we have. This is going to go for probably 1 second. So 8 frames in our case. 45. Let's see what we have. Honestly, I think it's outstanding. This could be awesome. This could be like one of the really better shots I've done in recent memory. I can just tell. Now, one thing I did say I was going to do here is try cheating. So I'm going to go ahead and try. I'm going to hit the S key. And my suspicion is that rather than bringing it up a notch, it's going to bring it down a notch. But we're going to try. Okay, so now I'm going to hit Control C again. Control V. And the reason is because by not redrawing her, I suspect we're just going to introduce too much of that sort of stiff digital feeling. Nope. It all happens so fast that it doesn't matter. So in this case, I got away with it. That is a fact. Okay. Cool. So now let's just start tightening this up, and I would expect, as I say, I may go ahead and render this and just cut it into the show, in fact, because I think it's going to be fun to see how it works together with the other shots. Why don't we do that? Let's go ahead and do that. Now, if we jump back over to the show, we're going to have, okay, so we're starting here. And it's actually this shot. This shot is going to be removed. So 117 is taken out. Let's go ahead and just clean the project media so we can insert this entire sequence in here. So let's jump back here. Save, save, save. Ah, good advice, my friend. Good advice. Save all. Yeah, you know, after all these months, Dave, you finally actually done something that's starting to look pretty good. You might want to save your work. Am I right? Okay, so we will let this save, and then we're going to render it as JPEG, so it'll have a white background when we cut it in, but it should work fine. And then I may go ahead and stop. Let's see here. I'm at 2.5 hours. We'll see. But okay, so it's got to save all of these images. But this is a great experience for me because it's like I'm spending more time. I mean, I'm working on this longer than normal, like as far as in any given day. But by gum, I'm having fun, and I feel like it's looking good. So it's so worth it. Render output settings. Okay, so yeah, this is all wrong. We want to go plus scenes /117 / render. And this is just going to be 117 JPEG. And while I'm thinking about it, I'm going to go to 117 over here. And I am literally just going to delete all these images. Get them out of here. Goodbye. See ya. You're not welcome anymore. And save and render. Okay. So we'll take this, chop it into the show, kind of see how things are feeling, and I think we're going to have more of what we've experienced the last couple days and shots that we've redone, which is like, yeah, that's definitely looking a little better there, dude. So pre-computing, it's pre-computing, so while it's pre-computing and getting ready to render, I'll jump back over to the show. And so we're going to have 45 frames, we got about 5 seconds. So this is going to be, let me see. So it's going to be about like that. Should be about like that. Alright, is Tahoma done rendering? I don't know. It looks like it is. So here we will just go ahead and go to Project Media. We're going to look at 117. Render. 45 frames at 8 frames per second. Boom. And 117 JPEGs. Smack them in there. And turn off the resampling. And we'll jump back over here so we can kind of see what we're doing. Blah, 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 blah. Bam. Okay. Yeah, so the thing that's missing in her characterization, whoops, that's the wrong project, Dave. Okay, the thing that's missing in her characterization is her eyelids. So here, this is important. Because she's actually got these painted eyelids going on. Yep, we actually got them in here, mainly because I drew the zones that represent where her eyes are going to be. And here they are glaringly absent. So this is where actually I'm going to say probably it's going to turn out that I can go shift and do a selection and raise these up. And then, see, right now she looks too young. But let's put these in, because they're going to have to be in there. And I think that's going to look better. Now this all goes by pretty fast, so. Okay. N key, right there. Actual size. Oops, hit the wrong key. Okay, so now one thing we could do here is, let's go back to this one. Okay, here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna actually go like this. Get those eyes in there. And what I'm gonna do is go from wide to less wide. So this is where I'm dialing up the sort of the demonic feeling, because she goes from, you see her eyes squinting shut. I like that. That's pretty nasty. She looks like bad news here, people. Bad news. We don't like her very well, do we? In fact, you could even give her a sneer, right? That crawls onto her face. And if we were really gonna, which kind of makes sense here from a detail standpoint. This is the landing drawing. This is where we're going to be stuck for 3/4 of a second. So we want to make sure that this is definitely saying what we want to say. Almost a little dimple. I mean, for a woman who's, 50 plus, she's not altogether unattractive. She really isn't. I don't know that she's 50 plus, but she's probably in that zone. So she's in that zone, my friends. She's in that zone. This can be pretty loose. Just get the feeling of the action. And then smack that down. If we were at 12 frames per second, by the way, I would be putting one tween in there, but at 8 frames per second, it would just slow everything down too much. So that's sort of the girdle again of her. I'm having a brain fart on this bone that people break all the time when they get in car accidents. Now what you could do here, yeah, we'll let the headdress kind of billow around a little bit. I mean, this is only on the screen for 1 frame, right? So that we're just kind of suggesting a feeling here. Oh, that I did not mean to do. It's supposed to be there. was better before without eyelids. Yeah, but it doesn't matter. She's, yeah, collarbone, yeah. It doesn't matter. She has the eyelids. I mean, she's all, you know, she's a main, well, she's one of the kind of important characters in the show, and she always has the eyelids. That's always been part of her characterization, so that's really not optional. Again, a good example of in isolation, you might say, well, I like this character better. This character looked better. Well, doesn't matter if that's not the character. You know, it'd be like saying, you know, you draw a shot of Mel and say, well, you know, he'd look better if he had red hair instead of purple hair. Well, maybe, but the problem is he has purple hair. So that one I'm going to overrule on. I would have to say that the eyelids are important. Yes, the eyelids are important. Yeah, and remember, when we do ink and paint, this is all going to be rather simplified as well. So basically my work is done as far as the pencil test goes, I think. And I don't think I want to do ink and paint right now. I think I want to go pump some iron. This is the time of day that normally I lift. So I think it's going to be time to go move some weight. What is today? Today is boy, that is so ominous, man. Again, this is, wait a second. Oh, I see. I was thinking this stayed on the screen longer than it does. But, yep, I think that's it. You want to check it out, Val? So this is the shot I'm redoing. Stomps over there. Bam. Isn't that nasty? Yeah, so I would argue that she's a little bit too comic booky looking in this particular shot. Yeah. A little too much of that influence, but I mean, other than that, I mean, I'll get her on character. She looks more on character there, but we're okay. We're okay. So, anyway, I think that's it. Sorry, Max. You can't win them all. I've taken several of your suggestions today, so yep, I'm ready to go expend some energy in the old in the basement. So, all right, guys, thanks for hanging out. And as you know, I promise, there will be more later.